Ladies and gentlemen, we love the free market. It's done us much good. Many people have prospered from it, and it's great. But sometimes the free market itself has a market failure. Sometimes one group is too big for us to actually enjoy the fruits of that free market. And in those situations, the courts comes in, calls it a monopoly, and breaks it. That's what made Janet Reno ask the courts to break down Microsoft back in the day. What we're saying to you today, that the same principle that we use when it comes to markets should also work on the democratic system. We're going to tell you in my speech today why the courts. We're going to tell you why this is a democratic failure. And we're going to tell you why we're going to break up these parties and not, for example, move on to the alternative or something like that. What's our mechanism? If in a country you have 15 consecutive years where a party gets an overwhelming majority, and obviously there is no feasible way that another political party can enter in, can bring its ideas really, or give a real alternative to the other people, the courts may activate a clause allowing them to break that party up into smaller entities as is fit. Every country has different situations, so we can't make this, decide exactly what it will be. We trust the courts with that. We think this is the way things should go. We are, by the way, place-setting this in Earth. Now, so, for start, why the courts? Why of all people? Again, we think that in most democracies, clarification, then sit down, please. We see that in most democracies, the courts are already in charge of taking care of democratic failures of sorts. We see situations where they believe, for example, the freedom of speech is being held by the government, the court may intervene. We see in situations where they think that certain election laws were rigged, the courts may intervene. We think this is exactly the same case, and we think that, yes, sir, go.
But those courts intervene on the basis of laws that were put in by people by electing their politicians. Why does that suddenly change?
No, that's not actually true. There is judicial activism. If you've been to round 9, you must have heard a lot about it. And there are many cases where courts can say, even about laws, they don't fit the Constitution, they don't fit for democratic principles, and it's fine to remove them. So, basically we say that even when it's election, a court should have the ability to come and say this is a bad choice for democracy. Because we say that even if it's a choice made by the people, which many times can be a case of, say, let's screw certain minorities, certain stuff, the court has a right to do that. Up till now, this is basic stuff of why. But the next question is, why? I'm going to take closing next, sorry. The next question is, why is this such an inherent democratic failure? Well, there's several reasons for this, and we have sort of like 4 here, but don't write 4 down because I'm not trying to count them right. Okay? It's first of all, you have no real alternative for democracy to work, and this works on 2 levels. The first level it will work on is, of course, the voting itself, in which case going to vote becomes kind of meaningless when there are parties who have 93% of the vote or more and stuff like that. Egypt is a very good example. Great neighbor, by the way. Then there's the whole issue of parliamentary ideas. When you have these countries, if they have a representative democracy, which happens in many cases, the government can pass any law that it wants. We think this is inherently a bad thing. We think that there should be power checks on the government, and we think one of those is to actually hold them. Go, Ali.
You yourself consented that there's constitutional testing of laws. Why isn't that enough of a mechanism to check whether laws are right or wrong? You yourself conceded that there is constitutional testing of laws. Why isn't that sufficient to make sure that laws aren't biased and are just?
Again, we think, okay, good question, very good question. It leads to the fact that we believe that democracy weighs best when its people are judgmental and actually weigh in options. Mayor will weigh more about that, no thank you. But the fact is that we believe that if after a certain amount of time the people see the same person again and again, the same party again and again, they basically reach this point where they cannot really fathom what it means to live under another leadership. This is the same reason for the Americans out there that after Roosevelt, not the 10-year one, the other one, after Roosevelt died, they added term limits in into the United States Constitution because there were millions of young Americans who grew up not remembering any other president, and that was deemed bad for a democratic way of making decisions. That was deemed as a way that people will forget that they can actually weigh other options. Now, beyond that, we say that in these situations, the government is less likely to have an incentive to be good, to help their people, because the odds are they will not be kicked out of power. This creates a sort of rusty system where people don't really have to care so much about how good they do for the people, but they do have to care about, let's make sure the opposition is kept in check. Make sure we keep dominating our power. Not necessarily saying if we want to keep our power, let's be good to our people. We see this all over the Arab world, where you have these elections where pretty much there is no other option but to vote for the government. Okay, so we've seen that, but why break them up? Why do that? Why just not set a term limit or something like that? Well, because with the momentum we have, we think that this gives a chance. When we take a big party, tell it to break up to 3 different ones, or 2 different ones, or 4, as we said, that's not the issue here. We force it to rethink its ideas. We realize that sometimes it will be some of the same people, but because they can no longer work in tandem, they will have to offer something different from the other guy. They will have to be the ones who try to reshape and offer a new platform that is different and new. And we think this is a good thing. We think that in that way, we actually make new negotiation tables. We make people try to promote themselves in different ways, and we think this is a wonderful thing for a democratic society to do. We think this is how things should work. What have you gotten from us? You've gotten from us why there is such a thing as a democratic monopoly. You've gotten from us a mechanism that solves it. We've shown you why we've chosen this entity. We've shown you why this is a democratic failure in the ability of people to actually make a choice. And we've shown you why breakup is what we should do, and not just put a simple term limit, as some people do in some countries. For all these reasons, I stand in opposition. The German delegation said that if I reach the finals, I have to say something nice about Germany here, so the rhyme is very long.